Imagine putting up 102 points in an absolute, offensive masterclass. I mean, that's a score that mathematically guarantees a victory in, 90% of AFT Dice simulations?
Yeah, easily 90%, at least.
Right, and then somehow still losing by 45 points. It's wild. That is the brutal, honestly math-defying reality of Season 13 right now.
It really is. It's completely upended how we look at the game.
Exactly. So if you've been trying to make sense of the wild swings we're seeing across the league right now, you are in exactly the right place.
You really are, because we've got a lot to get through today.
We do. We have the Round 6 match results from July 21, 2026, laid out right in front of us. And we've got the fully updated 18-team ladder alongside it.
Which is looking pretty strange right now, I have to say.
Totally. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically cut through all those raw numbers. We are looking under the hood of the AFT Dice game engine.
Right, getting into the actual mechanics.
Yeah, to figure out who has actually mastered the mechanics of this simulation and who is, surviving purely on statistical variance. And we also want to see how the underlying probabilities of just a single quarter can fundamentally alter a team's entire season trajectory.
Because the raw data from this round, it's presenting us with some massive statistical contradictions.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, in a dice-based simulation league, we expect the law of large numbers to create a fairly predictable bell curve. Right?
You'd think so, yeah. That's the baseline assumption.
Exactly. But instead, we're looking at a landscape where the mechanics seem to be just breaking down at the extreme.
Breaking down completely.
Yeah. You have teams successfully manipulating the system's defensive modifiers to create these impenetrable leads, while at the same time, other teams are completely failing their baseline structural checks.
Which is leading to those crazy scores.
Right, resulting in some of the most bizarre box scores we've seen in 13 seasons. The latter position only tells you the output of the equation, We really need to dissect the input.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start right at the very top of that equation. Port Adelaide.
Oh, yeah. The Juggernaut right now.
They are sitting at a flawless 6 and, riding a +6 streak. And they have an intimidating, just terrifying percentage of 131.59%.
It's a massive number for this stage of the season.
It really is. And looking at their Round 6 victory over West Coast at Adelaide Oval, where they won 96-66, it is so easy to assume they are just rolling incredibly well.
Sure, people see a 30-point win and just assume hot dice.
Right. They controlled the game early, going up 26-20 in the first quarter, and simply choked the life out of West Coast.
They absolutely did.
But I look at a streak like this, and I don't know, I see a player on a prolonged heater at the craps table. Like, in a system built on dice rolls and probabilities, aren't they just coasting on a favorable side of variance against middle-of-the-pack teams?
See, I think that completely misreads how Port Adelaide has constructed their game plan this season.
Oh, really? You don't think it's just luck?
Not at all. They aren't relying on raw luck or, waiting for high offensive rolls. What makes their 131% percentage so terrifying is actually how they are utilizing defensive dice modifiers.
Okay, walk me through that. How does that work in the engine?
Well, in the AFT Dice engine, generating a scoring opportunity requires a sequence of successful midfield clearance rolls.
Right, you have to chain them together.
Exactly. And Port Adelaide allocates almost all their tactical points into negative modifiers against their opponents.
Wait, so they aren't buffing their own offense?
No, not really. When West Coast attempted to roll for a forward entry, Port's structural setup forced them to subtract from their total. It effectively nullified their critical hits before they could even target the goal.
Oh, wow, so they just lower the ceiling on the opponent's dice.
Exactly. They aren't hoping West Coast rolls poorly. They are mathematically lowering West Coast's probability ceiling.
So they are essentially stacking the deck so that even an average roll from West Coast translates into a mechanical failure.
That's exactly what it is.
That explains the 36 points to 13 discrepancy in the fourth quarter then. West Coast wasn't just fatigued. They were mathematically suffocated out of the action economy.
Suffocated is the perfect word for it.
But, okay, if Port Adelaide represents the absolute mastery of minimizing variance, I want to look at a team that seems to be surviving entirely at the mercy of it.
Right, because what's fascinating here is how Brisbane is operating on the complete opposite end of that philosophical spectrum.
Yes. Brisbane is such a weird case right now.
They really are. They are currently sitting in 6th place with a 4-2 record. And by all traditional metrics, being 4-2 means you are a strong top 8 contender.
Obviously, yeah. You're winning games.
Right. But when we look at the underlying math, Brisbane possesses a negative percentage of 95.03%.
Which is just bizarre.
Yeah, they had conceded 584 points across 6 games while only scoring 555.
That is a fundamental anomaly in a normally distributed dice system. Like, to win 4 out of 6 games, the aggregate math dictates you should be outscoring your opponents.
It absolutely does.
For you listening, a negative percentage at 4 and 2 means Brisbane is basically a structural Jenga tower.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. When they lose, their defensive base is so weak that they suffer these catastrophic blowout losses. But when they win, they are somehow pulling the exact right block out at the last possible second to keep the tower standing.
Just barely keeping it standing.
Yeah. They are winning by the absolute slimmest of mathematical margins.
And that Jenga analogy is perfectly mapped to their Round 6 clash against Essendon at Marvel Stadium.
Oh man, that game was wild.
It really was.
Yeah.
Brisbane won 98-94, but the mechanics of how they achieved that 4-point win exposed the fragility of their entire season.
Because they were down big, right?
Huge. Heading into the final quarter, Essendon had established a 19-point lead, sitting at 86-67. Under normal probabilities, holding a 19-point advantage with 1 quarter remaining triggers a win probability of roughly 88%.
So Essendon should have had it in the bag.
Oh, they were in complete control of the midfield action economy.
Then the simulation just flips on its head. Essendon's offense entirely evaporates. I mean, they manage a meager 8 points, just 1 goal and 2 behinds for the entire fourth quarter.
It was a total collapse.
Meanwhile, Brisbane explodes. They score 31 points by chaining together 5 goals and 1 behind in 15 minutes to completely steal the match.
Out of nowhere, really.
Yeah. Mechanically, how does a team that has been dominated for 3 quarters suddenly bypass the probability curve so aggressively? Did Essendon just roll snake eyes for an entire quarter?
It wasn't just poor rolling from Essendon, actually. It was a brutal collision of 2 very specific game mechanics.
Okay, what were they?
So in AFT Dice, teams that heavily front-load their offensive output can trigger a fatigue penalty in the final term, which basically strips away their positive attack modifiers.
Ah, so Essendon ran out of gas, mechanically speaking.
Exactly. Essendon hit that fatigue threshold hard. Simultaneously, Brisbane had banked their tactical momentum tokens rather than spending them in the third quarter.
Oh, wow, so they hoarded them.
Yes. When Essendon's defense lost its structure due to the fatigue penalty, Brisbane cashed in every momentum multiplier they had.
That is incredibly risky.
It is. They didn't dominate the broader game. They simply manipulated the timing mechanics, ensuring their highest probability rolls occurred exactly when Essendon's defense was mechanically broken.
I mean, it is brilliant resource management, but it leaves almost zero margin for error.
Literally zero.
Brisbane survived because the clock ran out just as they finished their run. But that calculated late-game token dump creates a stark contrast to what we saw over at the MCG.
Oh, absolutely. A totally different type of game.
Because while Brisbane timed a mechanical loophole to scrape by, another team had to completely dismantle their opponent's structure to survive. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the thriller between Richmond and North Melbourne.
Yeah, if Brisbane's win was about manipulating the fatigue system, Richmond's victory was an exercise in shattering the frontrunner buff.
Shattering is right. North Melbourne came out of the gates applying immense early pressure. They were leading 32-22 at the end of the first quarter.
They established early positional dominance, which, in this system allows a team to really dictate the terms of engagement.
And that dominance only compounded. By halftime, Richmond was staring down a 15-point deficit, trailing a 68-53.
Which is a nightmare scenario in this engine.
It is. To give that context for the listener, climbing out of a 15-point hole in this specific engine is incredibly difficult.
Almost mathematically impossible sometimes.
Right, because when a team holds a double-digit lead at the half, they usually shift their tactical allocations into a defensive shell. They stop trying to score heavily and instead invest all their dice modifiers into clogging the midfield.
Forcing the trailing team to take low probability, long-range shots.
Exactly. And North Melbourne executed this flawlessly through the third quarter, maintaining an 80-76 lead heading into the final break.
North Melbourne was playing the probabilities perfectly. They forced Richmond into a corner where the math said a comeback was, well, highly improbable.
But then Richmond figured it out.
They did. In the fourth quarter, Richmond completely overhauled their attack vectors. Instead of rolling into North Melbourne's fortified midfield shell, Richmond shifted their strategy to prioritize outside run-and-carry mechanics.
Which sidesteps the midfield entirely.
Exactly. They effectively bypassed the defensive modifiers North Melbourne had set up. And this adjustment resulted in Richmond outscoring North Melbourne 28-14 in the final term.
Turning a statistical certainty for North Melbourne into a 104-94 victory for Richmond, it is just a stunning mechanical pivot.
Truly an amazing adjustment.
Richmond realized the frontal assault had a 0% chance of success, so they literally changed the geometry of their dice rolls. I mean, they finished with 4 goals and 4 behinds in the fourth, while holding North Melbourne to just 2 goals and 2 behinds.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the latter implications of Richmond figuring out how to bypass that defensive shell are monumental.
Oh, it changes everything for them.
This 10-point swing wasn't just a dramatic finish. It fundamentally altered the survival math for both clubs. By securing those 4 premiership points, Richmond elevated themselves to 12th on the ladder, balancing their record at 3-3.
So right back in it.
Yeah, they proved their tactical engine can adapt mid-game, keeping them well within striking distance of the top 8.
And for North Melbourne, I mean, the failure of their defensive shell in the fourth quarter sends them spiraling down to 11th. They're also sitting at 3-3 now.
Tied on record, but moving in completely opposite directions mentally.
Exactly. They are separated on the ladder by mere percentage points, but mechanically, yeah, totally opposite. Richmond now knows they possess the offensive triggers to dismantle a lead, while North Melbourne has to audit their entire defensive system to understand why their modifiers collapse so spectacularly in the final 20 minutes.
It creates a massive psychological and structural burden for North Melbourne going into round 7.
No doubt.
However, while Richmond and North Melbourne engaged in this, highly tactical, modifier-heavy chess match, we also saw the AFT Dice engine produce outcomes this round that defied tactical logic entirely.
Oh, you mean the blowouts?
Yes, we saw the absolute extreme limits of the system's scoring potential.
The limits were completely shattered at Adelaide Oval. I really want to shift our focus to the sheer mathematical absurdity of Adelaide's victory over Melbourne.
Absurdity is the right word.
Adelaide put up 147 points. They won 147-102, registering 22 goals and 15 behinds.
Just staggering numbers.
When I look at those quarter-by-quarter numbers, 41 points in the second, 40 points in the third, 33 in the fourth, I legitimately struggle to comprehend how the simulation even permits that level of continuous scoring.
It's extremely rare.
I mean, in a system balanced by defensive counter rolls and fatigue, how does an offense continuously operate at maximum efficiency for an entire match without breaking down? Like, are they using cheat codes?
It feels like cheat codes, but really, it happens when both teams mutually abandon the concept of a defensive baseline.
What do you mean?
Well, the AFT Dice engine features a mechanic known as an offensive combo chain. If a team successfully strings together 3 consecutive high-probability contested rolls, the system grants them an automatic, highly favorable shot on goal with a bonus multiplier.
Right, the combo bonus.
Usually, the opposing team allocates tactical points to break this chain before that third roll. But in this game, Melbourne chose not to defend.
At all.
At all. Instead of trying to break Adelaide's combo chains, Melbourne put all their resources into generating their own offensive combos.
Oh, wow. So it became a statistical feedback loop, like 2 teams taking the control rods out of a nuclear reactor just to see how hot it can get.
That is exactly what happened.
Because Melbourne scored 102 points themselves, 15 goals and 12 behinds. In any other game this round, deploying an offensive system capable of generating 102 points would be a guaranteed victory.
It would have won almost every other matchup.
It would have easily crushed Brisbane, Essendon, Richmond, or North Melbourne. But because they refused to allocate any dice to stopping Adelaide's combo chains, they lost by 45 points.
It is the ultimate manifestation of high-variance, low-structure gameplay. Adelaide hit every single offensive trigger the system allows, chaining their multipliers perfectly.
It's amazing to watch.
It is a spectacle, absolutely. But from a mechanical standpoint, it is a highly unstable way to approach a season. Relying on combo chains means you are entirely dependent on rolling above the statistical average week after week.
Which brings us to the dark side of that exact philosophy. Because if Adelaide represents the absolute ceiling of the combo chain mechanic, what happens when a team tries to operate their engine and simply fails the baseline checks required to get out of first gear?
Which is painful to watch.
It brings us to Collingwood.
Yeah, this raises an important question about the structural floor of the league. Because when you look at Collingwood, anchored dead last in 18th place with a 1-5 record, you are witnessing a complete and total mechanical failure.
Total failure. Their percentage has plummeted to 80.55%.
And their performance against Carlton at Marvel Stadium was, honestly, an exercise in statistical misery.
Carlton won the game 85-39. 39 points for an entire four-quarter football match.
It's barely functioning.
Collingwood managed just 5 goals and 9 behinds. I mean, to put the math of that failure into perspective for you, Adelaide scored 41 points in their second quarter alone.
So Adelaide scored more in one quarter than Collingwood did all game.
Yes. Adelaide's offense in 15 minutes was more productive than Collingwood's entire match. Every time Collingwood needed a successful roll to advance the ball, the system returned a failure.
And if we look at their middle quarters, in the second quarter, Collingwood scored exactly 8 points. 1 goal, 2 behinds.
Brutal.
And in the third quarter, they scored 11 points. The reason their score is so abysmal isn't because Carlton played an incredibly complex defensive scheme. It is because Collingwood is failing the baseline action threshold.
Because their structure is just that bad.
Exactly. In this game engine, if your midfield structure is poor, you suffer negative modifiers to your standard rolls. Collingwood's baseline is currently so degraded that they cannot string together even 2 successful passes to generate a forward entry.
They are essentially trying to start a car with a dead battery. It doesn't matter what plays they call right. The engine won't turn over.
It just won't start.
And they aren't the only ones trapped in this mechanical basement. You look at GWS sitting in 15th at 1-5, who just dropped a game to Sydney 115-96.
Right, another team struggling structurally.
GWS put up a much better offensive fight than Collingwood, sure, but their defensive baseline is similarly broken. They are structurally incapable of stopping the opponent's momentum.
It really highlights the massive disparity in the league's current state. When your system is broken at the foundational level, momentum becomes your worst enemy.
It just rolls right over you.
Yeah, if you are Collingwood, struggling to manufacture a single goal due to baseline failures, and you see a team like Port Adelaide weaponizing their defensive modifiers to cruise to 6, it forces a realization that you are fundamentally playing a different tier of the game.
The dice cannot save a team that refuses to fix its underlying structural math.
They really can't.
So what does this all mean for you listening, trying to map out the rest of AFT Dice Season 13? We are basically looking at a landscape defined by incredibly distinct mechanical approaches.
Very distinct.
You have the sterile clinical perfection of Port Adelaide marching to a 6-0 record by artificially capping their opponent's probabilities with heavy defensive modifiers. I mean, they are removing variance from the equation entirely.
They are the absolute benchmark of structural integrity right now.
Then you have the statistical tightrope of Brisbane, sitting at 4-2 with a negative percentage, surviving entirely on fourth-quarter momentum manipulation.
Just banking on their opponents hitting fatigue penalties right as they cash in their multipliers.
Exactly. It is a brilliant but highly unstable Jenga tower.
A masterclass in timing, if not in overall dominance.
And then you have Richmond, proving that tactical adaptability can erase massive deficits, bypassing a 15-point halftime disadvantage by shifting their attack vectors away from North Melbourne's defensive shell, keeping their season alive at 3-3.
Proving that action economy can be outsmarted if you know what you're doing.
And finally, you have the chaotic extremes of the league's scoring engine. Adelaide abandoning all defense to trigger a monumental 147-point cascade of offensive combo chains, while Collingwood suffers a total system failure.
Scraping together just 39 points because their baseline structure is completely broken.
Right.
The contrast between those extremes is exactly why analyzing the underlying mechanics of AFT Dice is so vital. It actually leaves us with one incredibly compelling thought to consider as we move into the middle portion of the season.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we look at a 6-0 streak, like Port Adelaide's, and we logically assume it is evidence of an unbreakable structural advantage. We assume their defensive modifiers have somehow solved the game.
Right, because nobody can touch them.
But in a simulation governed by dice rolls, standard deviations, and statistical variance, we have to ask ourselves something. Is Port Adelaide's dominance a permanent reality of the Season 13 engine? Or is it merely a mathematically prolonged streak, like a statistical high, that is bound by the laws of probability to crash violently back to the mean before the finals arrive?
Wow. That is the ultimate question of the simulation, isn't it? Have they actually broken the math, or is the math just waiting to break them?
We'll have to see.
That tension between system structure and the inevitable roll of the dice is exactly what makes digging into these numbers so rewarding. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the stats, keep looking beneath the surface of the mechanics, and we will catch you next time as the season unfolds.